old, and it was about Spanish history in Utah. And so I read that whole book. There was like almost 300 pages. I read it in like 2 to 3 days. And I realized that that book was kind of like its own treasure map, pointing us to a certain area where the author, his name was Steve Schaefer. He ended up becoming my mentor and a good friend of mine years down the road. But anyways, that book that he wrote pointed us in the right mountain range. And so when I went out with those friends, you know, they were telling me, "Oh, you got a metal detector." You know, at the time I was 18. I didn't know much about metal detectors, I have to be honest. So I went out and bought a Garrett. I don't know if they, you know, it's been a few years, I'm not going to lie, but I can't remember if they called it the Ace 300, but it was the Garrett in 1997 that was compared to like the Garrett Ace 300 of today. And when I was up in that mountains, we actually found the trail that the author was talking about. We found Spanish symbols carved in the trees that have been there for a couple hundred years. And I broke out that Garrett metal detector, and I couldn't even believe it. I disappeared. I don't even know. I left my friends behind. And it was probably a good hour later, you know, I kind of stopped and I look around and I go, I haven't looked up for an hour. I just kept walking with my head down, looking at this, you know, the screen of the metal detector. And I realized I was lost. And on my way back, trying to find my way back to my friends, I ended up finding the metal detector went off. And it kind of was a weird tone. And so I started digging, said it was about 4 to 6 inches in the ground. It ended up being a Forest Service tree tag. Back in the day, at least up in this area of Utah, they used to have these like aluminum stamps that said Forest Service, and it had the date. And when I brushed the dirt off of it, it said Forest Service 1901. And I'm looking at it going, wow, this is a tree tag from 1901. From there, I was hooked. It's like, it doesn't matter if, you know, I might have been looking for Spanish treasure that day, but I found another type of treasure, and that was, you know, the passion for finding anything that's lost and, you know, that's buried underneath the ground by metal detecting.
Wow, awesome. What a great story. And it's always that first find, you know, that really can get you hooked. I know Amanda's got some questions for you, too. But there was a question in chat. Did you see it, Amanda?
Yeah. So Bill ORH, Ohio Relic Hunter, wanted to know what town did you grow up in? I
was born in the Mesa Hospital, and I grew up in right around the border of Tempe and Mesa, Scottsdale Road and McDowell area, to narrow it down.
That's awesome. And then so go off that. So you were out there looking for Spanish and you found the tree tag. Now I know you metal detect, and you were talking about how, you know, we all start, you know, you're looking for one thing, but you kind of get going on a different path. Is there any other like type of treasure hunting that you do as well? Like, do you do privy digging or any of that type of stuff?
So my passion, what I've really made a name, you know, for myself, basically, what I really like and what I feel like I'm good at is the old Spanish and along with ancient mines. So for a long time, I've been in, I lost track so many years ago, at least 150, maybe even 200 mines now. And that's always been a passion. So I love these mines. I can't explain to you what it is exactly, but the mines I have learned, like let's say if I am looking for a Spanish treasure, well, Spanish treasures, after all these years of doing this, I have learned the mine is actually what I call ground zero. So the Spanish hid a treasure, at least here in the Western states. Now, it's a little bit different if you live east on the East Coast. A lot of those treasures are more of the pirates or the Spanish coming in and burying what they dug out. But here in the Western states is where the Spanish mined and where they found a lot of their silver and gold. They didn't just get silver and gold from the Incas and the Aztecs. They were actually here. Where present day Arizona is, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Montana. They were in these states and they were mining, and some of these mines were extremely rich mines with gold and silver. So what I've learned with Spanish hunting is that if I can find these Spanish mines, if I explore them, it gives me a very good idea of, how rich is the mine? How deep did they go in? What kind of veins are still exposed? And then from there, the chances of the Spanish treasure being in that area is pretty high, because lots of times what happens is the Spanish were there mining, something happened. This is just what every story comes out like this, where the Indian tribes, the local Indian tribes rebelled or fought against the Spanish. The Spanish were caught off guard, and they hid the gold or silver that they mined out of that area. They hid it, and then they hightail it out of that area to save their lives. And some of them never were able to come back for that treasure. So if I can find those mines, I have a very good shot at finding other Spanish artifacts and treasure, within, I would say, a good 5-mile radius of where those mines are located.
Man,
Fantastic.
and that's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. I know you live in an area where there's probably a lot more Spanish mines than, of course, a lot of the areas where we live. Like Amanda lives in Maine. I live in Texas. Do you have any idea about how many mines are in the state of Utah?
In the state of Utah, I can tell you this. I have over 50 sites that I've been working on for the last, let's say for the last 24 years. Over 50 sites just in Utah alone that are linked to Spanish mines. Or if they're not Spanish mines, they could be Spanish, and they could be and are Spanish missions, places where they hid their treasures and stuff as they were going through. So we all know of the old Spanish trail that Escalante used in the 1700s. But what a lot of people might not know, that's the main trail that he used. And a lot of people refer to that, and it is called the Old Spanish Mine. But the Spanish miners who came from Mexico City, that was their headquarters. That's where they had that's where their ships were coming back and forth, just off the coast there of Mexico City. They would come up in this area, and they would do their thing. So, yeah.
Now,
Wow.
do you
That's
tend to use
so
like LiDAR, or are you spending time at like the library, or using like historic map works? Are you doing like any of the overlay for like research to help you narrow down areas?
I can explain it this way. Yes, 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 and yes, all the above.
Fantastic.
I'm in my office right now, and I have this old Spanish map that was digitally redone. It was 5 Spanish maps of the Utah area. It was all redone. Took a little bit of time, but they're here on the wall, and it shows where their Spanish mines are. This is about 40 miles long of a mountain range in North Utah. And I can tell you right now, the Spanish map, using the legend, I can see where they hid buried caches and marked them. I can count how many Spanish mines they had in that mountain range. And just from that 40 miles from east to west, there's over 40 mines just in that one mountain range that they were mining. And we have evidence that it goes all the way back from the 1600s and even into more modern day time that people might not believe. You might have to go do some research, but the only people who are here where I live now in Utah, before the LDS people moved into the area, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints people came from, back east, more mid-east. They came to this area. Before they came here in 1840, there was nothing but Indian tribes in this area. So the Indians were the ones that passed on the story of the Spanish mining here. And that's where we get a lot of our information. So people like me in the Western Coast, we're buying old documents that were written in Spanish from each other. We're finding old maps. There's been people who have gone down to Mexico City to find areas where these old documents are. And I can tell you that they've been down there and they've offered American money. Hey, there's this, I've been told that there are certain old buildings in Mexico that in the basement, there are boxes and boxes of old Spanish documents that are just collecting dust. It includes maps. It includes waybills, which is literally a waybill. A Spanish waybill is literally a document that one of the Spaniards wrote to tell Mexico City, and Mexico City related to the King of Spain, where they were, what they found, and what they're doing. So these old documents are nothing new to me. I'm using old maps. I'm using old documents all the time. And yes, by doing the, overlay, sometimes the Spanish were actually very smart and very good at navigating, but to try to figure out the exact distance on a 300-year-old Spanish map to find the modern day location, that takes a lot of time. So yeah, I spend a lot of time in the libraries and the archives. I spend a lot of time reaching out to other treasure hunters. And that's one thing that I've been proud of with my name. I've been able to take down people's defenses, and tear down their walls a little bit. Some of these treasure hunters are very secretive of what they do. And I feel proud that I feel like I've changed things. I've lowered their guard, and I've taught them that people, like, not everybody's out to get them, or not everybody's out to try to take something they think they're onto. Someone like me is someone who is always telling people, hey, if we work together, just think what we can do. You share your knowledge with me. I share my knowledge with you. Now we're twice as strong. Power comes in numbers, and so does knowledge. And so, there's a lot of that stuff going on here.
That's so true, Tim. And I know we talked about that when we were filming as well. A little, we touched on that. And I know with my upcoming film project that I'm going to be working on, I'm probably going to be reaching out to you. And, I think that, and that's something that we've talked about here on this show a lot, and it's just sharing knowledge. And we all grow from sharing and teamwork and all of that. And I think that's fabulous, Tim, that you're doing that. And thank you for sharing all of your knowledge here with us tonight. I know that I'm learning something, and I'm sure our listeners are learning something, and we all gain to learn something from each other. And we appreciate you for sharing that with us.
Well, thank you. And, likewise, I feel the same way with everybody else. The way I look at it, if I can leave this earth as an old man one day and I inspired a few people, I taught a few people a few things, that's really my motivation. It's my passion, but that's something that I've been told that for years. Tim, you like teaching people. You like learning. You just have that personality. You should get out there and teach people. And that's really what I'm trying to do with everything I do, with my websites, with my social media. I'm not trying to steal likes. I'm not trying to become the popular guy. I'm actually trying to teach people. And I'm hoping by doing that, people can see my motive behind that, and we start sharing the wealth, sharing the knowledge.
That is perfect. Exactly, Tim. And that's what we try to do here on this show. And also having so many different, diverse type of treasure hunters, treasure seekers, whatever, and people that even hunt for just relics. They don't necessarily even use a metal detector or anything like that. Other types of treasure hunting as well here on the Treasure Vortex podcast. And so what I wanted to ask and get into, I know a lot of people already know, and we've kind of touched on it very, very briefly here, about your TV project. You're producing a TV show, a show that I was privileged enough. I appreciate you letting me be a part of one of the episodes and coming to Utah and filming with y'all. you want to go ahead and introduce a little bit about that and talk a little bit about
Sure.
that?